Okay, so navigating all the health trends out there, it can feel like trying to drink from a fire hose, right?
Totally. Information overload is real.
Yeah, and everywhere you look, there's a new diet, new buzzword. And right now, smack bang in the middle of it all is intermittent fasting.
It's huge. Everyone's talking about it.
Exactly. But I think for a lot of people, it's still really confusing. Like, how does it actually work
Yeah.
in your body?
Mm-hmm.
And how on earth do you fit it into, a normal, busy life? And maybe the biggest question, what are you even allowed to eat or drink when you aren't fasting?
That confusion makes perfect sense. There's just so much info flying around.
Yeah.
So that's why for this deep dive, we've really zeroed in on one specific comprehensive source. It's Jean LaMantia's book, Complete Intermittent Fasting.
Okay.
And our mission really is to try and cut through all that noise. We want to pull out the most essential, the most useful, actionable stuff specifically from this guide.
Love that. So we're going to unpack the science.
Yeah.
The why it works. Then explore all the different ways you can actually do it, because there isn't just one way.
Definitely not. Lots of variety.
And then get really practical. Advice on everything from handling hunger pangs to what you should actually focus on eating when you are eating.
Yeah, the feeding window.
Right.
Yeah.
So think of this as us digging into this book, pulling out the key takeaways for you so you can get informed without feeling totally overwhelmed. Let's dive in.
Okay, let's start where the book starts, the fundamental science. It really comes down to how your body handles food, after you eat.
Simple enough.
Your blood sugar and your insulin levels, they go up, then they come down. And that lowest point your blood sugar reaches before you eat again, that's your fasting blood sugar.
Okay.
The book mentions that a normal fasting blood sugar is typically less than 100 milligrams per deciliter.
Got it. And insulin seems like it's always the big player in these conversations. We hear about it with diabetes, obviously, but it sounds crucial for everyone.
Oh, absolutely crucial. The source really highlights how in conditions like type 2 diabetes or even just insulin resistance, your body isn't handling glucose efficiently.
Right.
And your insulin levels can end up staying high for too long. And this isn't just about blood sugar. Persistently high insulin actually encourages your body to store fat.
Ah.
And here's a really key point the book makes. When your glucose levels are high, your body is basically locked into using that glucose for fuel. It just won't efficiently switch over to burning your stored fat.
So high insulin kind of traps you in fat storage mode.
Yeah.
What about other hormones? Does the book mention others involved?
Yeah, it does. Human growth hormone, HGH, is a big one.
HGH, right.
The book explains its role in building and repairing muscle tissue and also helping to preserve muscle and bone density. That's especially important as we get older.
Makes sense.
A deficiency is even linked to having more body fat and less muscle and bone mass. And then there's cortisol, the stress hormone.
Oh, yeah. Cortisol.
That factors in too. Too little can sometimes lead to weight loss, like in Addison's disease, but excess cortisol, like in Cushing's syndrome, is often linked to weight gain.
Okay, so all these hormones working together. This leads to what the book calls the metabolic switch.
Exactly. And this is really the core concept, according to the source. After about 12 hours or so without eating, your body makes this fundamental shift.
The 12-hour mark again.
Yeah. It moves away from using glucose as its main fuel and starts tapping into your stored body fat instead.
Okay.
And this metabolic switch, it's linked to falling blood sugar and insulin levels, which improves insulin sensitivity. And importantly, it's linked to that increase in HGH we just talked about.
So the benefits people talk about with intermittent fasting, they really stem from triggering this switch. What are the main benefits the book highlights?
Well, weight loss is obviously a big one people are interested in.
Sure.
The source points to a 2019 review. It looked at 11 studies showing that various IF methods resulted in weight loss that was pretty comparable to just continuously cutting calories.
Interesting. So not necessarily better for weight loss, but comparable.
Comparable, exactly. They also mention specific studies on time-restricted feeding using 10 to 12-hour eating windows, or the popular 8-hour window led to weight loss.
Okay.
And this was fascinating. One study found that just shifting meal timing by 90 minutes resulted in fat loss, even if the overall weight didn't change much.
Wow, just 90 minutes. That's subtle but significant fat loss. What about managing insulin?
Yeah.
especially for folks dealing with type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, the book discusses this quite a bit. It notes that IF can be just as effective as continuous calorie cutting for managing type 2 diabetes.
Hmm.
One study it mentioned showed that the increase in HbA1c, that's the measure of your average blood sugar over months, was basically the same with IF as you'd expect from the natural progression of the condition over 2 years without any intervention.
So it helped manage it
And
effectively.
it seemed to in that study. And there's even a case study mentioned where some men with type 2 diabetes saw really positive results doing 24-hour fasts 3 times a week.
Okay, that sounds potentially really powerful. But I imagine the book is super clear that this needs careful handling, right? Especially with diabetes meds.
Oh, absolutely crystal clear. This is probably the most critical point the book makes, and it repeats it. If you are managing diabetes, or if you take any insulin or other glucose-lowering medications, you absolutely must work with your doctor or a diabetes educator before even thinking about trying IF.
Non-negotiable.
Totally non-negotiable. The risk of hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, is serious. You just don't mess around with that on your own.
Got it. Physician guidance first, always. What other potential benefits does the book touch on besides weight and insulin?
It mentions a few others. Things like increased resistance to cellular stress, more efficient breakdown of your fat stores, and also a process called autophagy.
Autophagy, that's like cellular cleanup, right?
Exactly. Your body's natural way of clearing out damaged cells and regenerating newer, healthier cells. The source mainly links the significant autophagy benefits to longer fasts, though, generally 3 days or more.
Okay. And you hear a lot of myths or fears about fasting. Does the book tackle those?
It does. It addresses a couple of the big ones head on, like the fear that fasting is just inherently dangerous.
Yeah, you hear that.
The book counters that by emphasizing that there are safe protocols based on research. And then there's the idea that fasting puts your body into starvation mode.
Right, that your metabolism crashes.
Yeah. The book clarifies that while, yes, biochemical changes happen, this temporary cycling between fasting and eating isn't the same as actual starvation. Your body's designed with huge energy reserves. The source estimates the average person has something like 161,000 calories stored.
Whoa, 161,000 calories. Okay, that definitely puts a, 16-hour fast into perspective. It's not starvation.
Not even close.
All right, so the science makes sense. The why is about this metabolic switch, hormones like insulin and HGH, and potential benefits for weight, insulin sensitivity, maybe even cellular health. But now, how do you actually do it? There seem to be so many different ways.
And that's actually one of the best takeaways from this book, I think. The flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not this rigid, one-size-fits-all diet. You can genuinely pick a method that slots into your life, your routine, your goals. You can even try different methods, switch things up.
Okay.
The basic idea, especially for the daily methods, is just dividing your 24-hour day into 2 distinct periods, a fasting period and a feeding period, or eating window.
Fasting window, feeding window. Got it.
And the book also mentions that this kind of time-restricted feeding might help sync up your body's internal clocks, your circadian rhythms.
Interesting. Okay, let's walk through some of these methods the book describes. What are the main daily ones?
These usually fall under the umbrella of time-restricted feeding, or TRF. You eat within a set window each day. The book covers the 12.12 method.
12 hours fasting, 12 hours eating. Seems manageable.
Yeah, often a good starting point. Then there's 16.8.
That's the popular one, right?
Yeah.
16 hours fasting, 8-hour eating window.
Probably the most well-known, yeah. Often means just skipping breakfast and eating lunch and dinner. And then there's 20 hours fasting, just a 4-hour eating window.
Wow, 20.4 sounds intense.
It's definitely more challenging. The book lists them sort of in order of increasing difficulty, especially if weight loss is the primary goal.
Okay, those are the daily cycles. What about methods that aren't every day? Weekly or periodic fasting?
Right. There are several of those, too. There's the 24-hour method. Sometimes you hear it called eat, stop, eat.
How does that work?
Basically, you fast for a full 24 hours, maybe once or twice a week. So, like, you finish dinner on Monday, and you don't eat again until dinner on Tuesday. Or lunch to lunch.
And fluids are okay during that?
Yeah, low-calorie fluids are generally allowed. The source does mention, though, that there's relatively limited published research specifically on this exact 24-hour pattern compared to others.
Okay. What about 5.2? That one gets talked about a lot, too.
The 5.2 diet, yeah, that's 5 days of your normal eating pattern, and then 2 days a week, usually not consecutive, but they could be where you do a modified fast.
Modified fast, meaning not 0 calories.
Right. On those 2 days, you eat significantly less, typically around 500 to 750 calories. The book suggests this can be a really good starting point if you're new to the idea of fasting and your main goal is weight loss.
Interesting, like dipping your toe in. And alternate day fasting. I think the book mentions Dr. Christopher Eddy.
It does. Alternate day fasting, or ADF, involves alternating between a day of normal eating and a modified fast day. Again, around 500 calories or so.
So every other day is a low-calorie day.
Pretty much. The book explains you can think of it as maybe a 36.1 cycle. If you finish dinner on day 1, fast all of day 2, eating maybe 500 calories, and then eat breakfast on day 3. It's longer and more frequent fasting than the once or twice a week 24-hour method.
Okay.
And some people doing ADS might even opt for just water on their fast day instead of the 500 calories.
Wow. And the book even covers longer fasts, like 48 hours or more.
It does mention them, but with significant caution. A 48-hour fast could look like finishing dinner on day 1 and not eating again until dinner on day 3.
2 full days.
Yeah. The source strongly recommends doing this only maybe once or twice a month, max. And definitely not for beginners. You could do it as a modified fast or water only.
And longer than 48 hours. Extended fasting.
Extended fasts, yeah. 3 days or more. These are discussed as a way to stay in ketosis for a longer period, which is linked to those benefits like stress resistance, fat breakdown, and autophagy we talked about earlier.
But the caution level must be even higher for those.
Extremely high. The book is absolutely emphatic. 48-hour fasts and anything longer require consultation with your physician. No exceptions, especially if you're on any medications at all.
Got it. Doctor first.
It does mention an interesting point that ghrelin, the hunger hormone, often peaks around day 2 of a longer fast, and then hunger can actually start to decrease after that. But again, these are not recommended as a starting point, especially if weight loss is the goal. The book also briefly touches on OMAD, 1 meal a day, basically a 23.1 pattern, noting that published research is still pretty limited there too.
Okay, that's a lot of options. So with all this choice, how does the book suggest someone figure out which method might be right for them, based on their goals, maybe?
It offers some pointers. For weight loss, it kind of lists the methods that have clinical trial support. We just went through 12.12, 16.8, 20.4, 5.2, and alternate day fasting generally ordered from, easier to more challenging.
Makes sense. What if the goal is more about managing insulin, like with type 2 diabetes?
Well, again, first step is talking to your doctor or diabetes educator. Cannot stress that enough. But with that massive caveat, the book mentions that clinical trials support the 5.2 method for this goal. And remember that case study. It showed good results with 24-hour fasts 3 times a week for men with type 2.
Right.
The book gives practical advice, too, for use under medical supervision, like always having fast-acting glucose nearby in case of lows, and potentially needing to adjust long-acting insulin doses on fast days. And always treat a low blood sugar reading, even if it means breaking the fast. Health first.
Absolutely. Safety first. What if your main challenge is just fitting it into a busy life? Kids, social events.
The book suggests picking a method that still allows you to share at least 1 meal a day with others. Like 16.8 often works well because you might skip breakfast but still have lunch and dinner with family or friends.
So don't isolate yourself.
Exactly. And flexibility is key for making it sustainable. Plan your eating window around social stuff. Maybe you shift your 8-hour window later one day if you have a dinner date. You check menus online beforehand. You adjust your next meal if needed.
And family meals. Those can be important traditions.
Totally. The book acknowledges their value. The advice is try to plan your fasting so you can still participate. If you are doing a full fast during family dinner, maybe you just sit with them. Have a cup of clear soup or herbal tea.
Be present, even if not eating the same thing.
Right. Or find another mealtime you can share, like weekend breakfasts. It encourages creativity to maintain those connections and rituals.
Okay, so you've picked a method, you've thought about your goals. What does the book say about actually getting ready to start? It's not just about the food, is it?
No, it's definitely mental and physical prep too. Mentally, the book advises being really honest with yourself about your reasons, focusing on the positive motivations, but also be ready for challenges. You might feel hungry initially, have cravings, maybe headaches.
Manage expectations?
Exactly. And crucially, it touches on your relationship with food. If you have any history of disordered eating, the book strongly recommends seeking professional help, like from a registered dietitian who knows fasting, because IF could potentially be a trigger for some people.
That's a really important point. Physically.
Don't start right before a super stressful time, like a huge work project or running a marathon. Eat normally the day before you begin your first fast. Think back to any time you fasted before, even just for blood tests. How did you feel? Stay well hydrated, get enough sleep, basic self-care stuff.
And prepping your kitchen environment. Setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, this is practical. Stock up on the healthy, nutrient-rich foods you plan to eat during your feeding windows or on those modified fast days. And maybe just as important, remove the really tempting foods that might derail you during a fast.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Pretty much. The book also reminds us while IS is about when you eat, what you eat still matters a lot. You still need reasonable portions and good nutrition during that eating window. It's not a license to eat junk.
Good reminder. And getting the family or household on board.
Talking to them is key. Explain what you're doing, why, and how they might be able to support you. If you're the main cook, you might need strategies. Maybe prepare meals for others that aren't your favorites, or cook things ahead. Organizing the fridge and pantry so your food is easy to grab can help too.
Okay, let's talk temptation. Avoiding it sounds like half the battle. Any clever tips from the source?
Some really practical ones, yeah. Like, don't make it harder than it needs to be. If you know the bakery route home is torture, maybe take a different way.
Avoid the triggers.
Right. And the classic, never go grocery shopping when you're hungry. That's just asking for trouble.
Always a bad idea.
The book also reiterates using those allowed fasting drinks, water, plain tea, black coffee to manage hunger pangs. If you're tempted while out walking, maybe leave your wallet at home. Keep busy. Sometimes hunger is just boredom in disguise.
Good point.
And keep reminding yourself, a regular, balanced meal is coming soon. This isn't forever deprivation.
That shopping tip is gold.
It really is. The book is firm on this. Plan your meals for your feeding window, make a list, and go shopping after you've eaten on a feeding day.
Got it. Full stomach shopping only.
And it circles back to that idea of actively keeping the food you want easily accessible, and maybe moving the foods you don't want out of sight or even out of the house if possible, which again might require a chat with housemates or family.
Okay. Now, how about actually starting? Does the book recommend just jumping in cold turkey or easing into it?
Easing in is generally the recommended approach, especially if you tend to get headaches, feel dizzy from low blood pressure, or get really hangry.
Yeah, the hangries are real.
They are. So for time-restricted feeding, maybe you start with a 14-hour eating window and gradually shrink it down to 12, then 10, then 8 over days or weeks. For the weekly fasts, like 5.2, maybe you start with 1,000 calories on your low days and gradually reduce it towards the 500-750 target.
So easing in helps your body adjust.
Right, minimizes potential side effects. However, the book does acknowledge that some people just prefer to jump right in. It depends on your personality. You know yourself best.
Okay, so we've got the science down, the why, we've got the different methods, the how. But like you said earlier, it's not just about the fasting window, is it? What you eat in the feeding window is just as important.
Absolutely critical. The book really hammers this point home because you might have fewer hours or fewer days where you're eating. The quality of the food you choose during that time becomes even more important. Nutrient density is key.
So focus on whole, real foods.
Exactly. Whole, nutrient-rich foods are the best bet to make sure you're getting everything your body needs.
And hydration is another big one the book stresses.
Oh, massively important. The source points out adults generally need around 3 to 4 quarts of fluid total each day.
Wow, that's quite a bit.
It is. And when you're fasting, think about it. You're missing the water you'd normally get from your food, plus the drinks you'd usually have with your meals.
Ah, good point. Didn't think of the water and food.
So you have to be much more conscious about drinking fluids throughout the day. Setting reminders on your phone can actually be a really good strategy.
Why is it so crucial during fasting?
Good hydration helps with so many things. Regulating blood pressure, supporting your kidneys, preventing common fasting issues like constipation, headaches, feeling weak or dizzy. It's foundational.
Okay, foundational. Now, there's this whole online debate, right? Clean fasting versus dirty fasting. How does the book explain that?
It introduces those terms, yeah. They basically describe different philosophies about what you can consume during the actual fasting window.
So clean is stricter.
Yes. Clean fasting means sticking to liquids that have 0 calories and are highly unlikely to cause any glucose or insulin response in your body.
Like what?
Think plain water, sparkling water, black coffee, no sugar, no milk, nothing. Plain green tea or black tea. Salted water is sometimes included, as the electrolytes can help with things like muscle cramps. Herbal teas are generally okay too, though the book does mention a tiny caveat about a potential cephalic phase insulin response.
Cephalic what now?
Cephalic phase response. It's this idea that even just the smell or taste of something sweet, even without calories, could theoretically trigger a very small anticipatory insulin release in some people. Research is fuzzy on how significant this is, but it's part of the why behind strict clean fasting.
Okay, so that's clean. What's dirty fasting then?
Dirty fasting is a bit more flexible. It allows for things that might contain a very small number of calories or ingredients that could potentially elicit a small glucose or insulin response.
Examples.
Things like drinks with artificial sweeteners or non-nutritive sweeteners, or small amounts of fat, like adding butter or MCT oil to coffee, bulletproof coffee. Bone broth could also fall into this category, depending on how it's made.
Right. So does the book say one is definitively better? Clean versus dirty?
It's actually quite balanced. It acknowledges the debate is out there, but states pretty clearly that there isn't solid scientific research right now proving one is universally superior for everyone.
So it's more about the theory.
Exactly. The rationale for clean fasting is to avoid even that theoretical cephalic response and absolutely prevent any potential insulin spike that some people might get from certain sweeteners.
And the research on sweeteners themselves is kind of messy, isn't it?
It really is. The book touches on this. While some studies suggest replacing sugar with low-calorie sweeteners can help reduce overall calorie intake and lead to weight loss, other studies muddy the waters.
So?
Well, the book mentions research, for example, where people who switched from diet soda to plain water actually saw more weight loss and better insulin sensitivity.
Interesting.
It suggests these sweeteners might have more complex effects than we think. Maybe they interact with our gut bacteria or our taste receptors in ways that still influence metabolism somehow. The science isn't fully settled.
So what's the practical advice from the book then? Clean or dirty?
It really encourages self-experimentation. See what works for you. The book makes it clear you absolutely can succeed with IF without using any sweeteners at all. They're optional. But if you're finding you have intense cravings or you've hit a plateau, maybe try switching to a strict clean fast for a while and see if that helps. On the flip side, if you're really struggling to get through the fasting window, maybe a dirty option like a cup of bone broth or a bulletproof coffee could help you stick with it. But in that case, the book suggests avoiding the zero-calorie sweeteners and just trying the fat or broth itself.
Interesting distinction. What about snacking during the eating window? Does the book have an opinion on, like, 2 big meals versus 3 smaller ones plus snacks?
It mentions that the research on optimal meal frequency within the window is pretty inconclusive. So the advice is basically listen to your body.
Makes sense.
If you have an 8-hour window, maybe 2 substantial, satisfying meals work great for you. Or maybe you find that having 3 smaller meals or 2 meals plus a planned snack helps you manage hunger better and prevents overeating at your main meals.
So experiment again.
Yeah. And if you find yourself hungry after your eating window has closed, the book reinforces sticking to those clean fasting options. Water, plain coffee, plain tea. Don't reopen the window.
Right. Now, we talked about social situations making fasting tricky. Does the book give specific tips for navigating the eating part when you're out or it's a holiday?
It does. If you're dining out, especially if you're on a modified fast day and trying to track calories, checking the menu and nutrition info online beforehand can be a lifesaver.
Good planning.
And again, flexibility. Sometimes it's better for your sanity and your social life to just relax, enjoy the meal, and get back on track the next day, rather than being super rigid and making things awkward.
Yeah, balance.
For family meals, if you're doing a full fast, joining them with a clear soup or tea keeps you present. For holidays, plan ahead. Maybe shift your eating window for that day, or perhaps extend your fast a bit the next day to compensate. If you're a guest somewhere, maybe give your host a quiet heads up about your fasting, or offer to bring a dish that you know you can eat. That avoids putting them in an awkward spot.
Smart. The book also mentions something called social sabotage. I think many people have experienced that.
Oh, definitely. It's when friends, family, coworkers, maybe unintentionally, or sometimes intentionally, try to derail your efforts. Oh, come on, just have one piece, or, but it's my birthday cake.
Yeah, the pressure.
The source offers an interesting tip. Try framing your IF as being about a specific health goal rather than just weight loss. Saying something like, I'm working on improving my blood sugar levels might sometimes be received better than just, I'm trying to lose weight.
Health focus versus weight focus.
Yeah, the book suggests it might reduce that sabotage trigger in some people, and it also reminds you that usually this isn't personal. It often stems from the other person's own insecurities or relationship with food and health. Try not to take it personally.
Good advice. Now, is there any difference noted in the book about how IF affects men versus women? You hear discussions about that.
The book addresses this, yeah, while also noting that the research specifically comparing sexes is still pretty limited. But it does highlight known physiological differences. Men generally have higher metabolic rates, partly due to typically having more muscle mass, which is supported by testosterone.
Right.
Women's bodies are significantly influenced by estrogen, which tends to promote fat storage, especially that subcutaneous fat, partly for reproductive potential. And women's hormones fluctuate throughout the menstrual cycle, which can impact metabolism and how fat is stored month to month.
So hormones play a big role.
A huge role. The source notes that women might potentially have a slightly higher risk of developing insulin resistance compared to men, and maybe slightly lower inherent fat-burning capabilities, partly due to these hormonal differences and where fat tends to be stored.
Interesting. Any other considerations for women?
Yes, the book mentions anecdotal reports of women seeing changes in their menstrual cycles with IF. Sometimes cycles become more regular, or sometimes women who had lost their periods get them back.
Which implies fertility changes.
Potentially, yes. And that's why the book is extremely clear and strict. Intermittent fasting is not recommended during pregnancy, while breastfeeding, or if you are underweight. Full stop.
Crucial safety warning.
Absolutely. It also points out specific nutrient needs that women should be particularly mindful of, like iron aiming for about 18 milligrams a day, especially if menstruating, focusing on food sources first, but considering supplements if needed. And calcium's another big one due to the increased risk of bone loss after menopause. It suggests talking to your doctor about bone density scans and really focusing on calcium-rich whole foods like dairy, leafy greens, fortified foods.
Okay, good specific advice there. So going back to the feeding window, the focus is really on maximizing nutrition. The book actually includes recipes, doesn't it?
It does, a whole section. They're used as practical examples of how to fuel your body well during those eating times, or even for modified fast days.
How are they organized?
They're categorized, which is helpful. There are broths and drinks, some for clean fasting, like lemony chicken broth, some for dirty fasting, or keto, like bone broth or bulletproof coffee, and some for the feeding window, like smoothies. It even mentions a neighbor's green zinger shot.
Ah, love that. What about recipes for meals?
Yep. There are low-carb recipes, which the book suggests are great for managing blood sugar, similar to keto, but maybe less intensely focused on super high fat. Examples include an arugula salad with tuna or a Greek village salad, and it shares the secrets. Use white wine vinegar and slice the red onion paper thin.
Ooh, pro tips.
Then there are low-fat, low-calorie recipes. These are useful for those modified fast days, staying under maybe 400 calories. Or if someone doesn't tolerate high fat well, think overnight oats or a cherry almond chia pudding, which it notes is great for satiety. There's even a family recipe in the book for low-fat Sicilian eggs.
Nice personal touch. What about just general healthy eating?
That falls under the clean eating recipe section. These focus on nutrient-dense, whole foods, perfect for breaking your fast. Examples include oatmeal nut muffins made with barley flour for extra fiber benefits, or a crispy baked tofu stir-fry that the book mentions even kids tend to like.
Good to know.
There's also a corn and edamame salad with a ginger dressing highlighted as a craving buster.
I always need those.
And keto recipes are included too.
Yes, for those who want to combine IF with a ketogenic approach, which can potentially accelerate fat burning and glucose reduction. But the book is clear. Keto is not required for IF to work.
Okay, optional.
Right. These recipes are high-fat focused, like a breakfast sandwich using a quick jalapeno keto mug bread made with almond flour in the microwave, or keto meatballs with zucchini pasta, which sounds amazing, described as a family favorite. It also points out that their creamy keto broccoli soup recipe uses the whole broccoli, stem and all, to maximize a beneficial compound called sulforaphane. Wow, so lots of great ideas there.
Yeah.
It really reinforces that point. It's not just about the fasting, it's about intentionally nourishing yourself when you do eat.
Precisely. And the book really positions IF not as some quick fix diet, but potentially as a sustainable lifestyle approach, something for long-term health, maybe even longevity, drawing parallels to research on caloric restriction.
And making anything a long-term lifestyle usually requires flexibility, right? Not being super rigid forever.
Absolutely. The source really emphasizes this for long-term success. It doesn't have to be the exact same fasting window every single day for the rest of your life. Yeah. Maybe you do a stricter 18.6 window during the busy work week, but relax into a 16.8 on weekends when you have bunch plans. Or maybe you incorporate a 24-hour fast once a month. That adaptability is what prevents burnout and makes it feel less like a restrictive diet.
How does the book suggest monitoring your health if you adopt IF long-term, beyond just weight?
It advises having that conversation with your physician about maybe getting yearly blood work done just to keep an eye on key health markers lipids, blood sugar, inflammation markers, etc.
Standard checkups.
Exactly. And for women, particularly postmenopause or those with risk factors, it reiterates talking about regular bone density scans. And it also suggests considering a basic multivitamin mineral supplement, not necessarily required if your diet is fantastic, but as sort of an insurance policy, especially if your eating window is smaller, just to cover any potential gaps.
Makes sense. Now, what happens when things get tough? People hit bumps in the road. Does the book offer troubleshooting advice?
It does. It has a really practical section tackling common reasons why people might stop doing IF.
Look, what if you're just too hungry?
Simplest solution: shorten your fast. Even if you only manage a 12.1 window, the book reminds you that is still intermittent fasting. Start where you can sustain it.
Good point. What about cravings? Those can be brutal.
Yeah, cravings are tough. The book suggests trying to identify your specific triggers. Is it seeing food ads on TV? Walking past a certain shop? Feeling stressed or bored? Is it even artificial sweeteners or minty toothpaste triggering a sweet desire?
Toothpaste. Never thought of that.
Once you know the trigger, you can address it. Maybe change your routine. Find other ways to cope with boredom or stress. Reducing overall carbohydrate intake during your feeding window can sometimes help lessen cravings too. And it revisits the clean versus dirty fasting idea. If you're doing dirty fasting with sweeteners and struggling with cravings, try going strictly clean. If you're doing clean and finding it impossible, maybe try a dirty option like bone broth or bulletproof coffee, but again, avoiding sweeteners. A multivitamin is also mentioned as a check for potential nutrient deficiencies that might drive cravings.
Lots of angles to consider for cravings. What if social situations just keep tripping you up?
The advice is to lean into that flexibility again. Vary your fasting days or your window timing to accommodate important events. Remember, the book says even slow progress is still progress. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
What if you just lack support from people around you?
That's tough. The book suggests seeking out support elsewhere. Find online IF communities or forums. It even lists some resources. Or consider working with a registered dietitian who has experience with fasting protocols. They can provide professional guidance and support.
Good options. What if someone has multiple health issues they're juggling?
Then it's absolutely essential to work closely with a healthcare professional. They can help prioritize health goals and figure out if and how IF can be safely integrated alongside other treatments or management strategies.
Right. And the big one, the weight loss plateau. What does the book suggest then?
A few things to try. You could experiment with changing your eating window, maybe making it shorter, or sometimes even slightly longer can shake things up. Incorporating an occasional longer fast, like 24 or 36 hours, might help, if appropriate for you, and done safely with medical okay if needed.
Okay.
Another interesting suggestion is shifting your entire eating window earlier in the day to align more with daylight hours. Some research hints that might be metabolically beneficial. And finally, adding some low-intensity exercise like a walk right before you break your fast is mentioned as a way to potentially enhance fat burning.
Lots of strategies to try before giving up. And it sounds like the book normalizes taking a break sometimes. It's okay to stop.
Totally. Okay, the book explicitly says it's fine to take a break if you need one for whatever reason, vacation, illness, just feeling overwhelmed. The advice is to try and make that decision consciously when you're feeling relatively okay, rather than quitting impulsively out of sheer frustration.
Good point. Don't rage quit.
Exactly. And when you're ready to come back to IF, the advice is to start again from the beginning, ease back in gradually, just like you did the first time, to minimize side effects. Don't just jump back into a 20-hour fast if you've been eating normally for weeks.
Makes sense. And finally, the book really encourages looking beyond just the number on the scale, right?
Yes, this is so important for motivation. It highlights non-scale victories, or NSVs.
NSVs, I like that.
Yeah. These are all the other positive changes you might notice that aren't reflected in your weight. Maybe your clothes fit better, your skin looks clearer, you have more energy, less joint pain, your digestion improves, your mood is better.
All huge wins.
Absolutely. Weight loss isn't always linear, and sometimes it stalls. Focusing on these other positive health benefits can be incredibly motivating and a much better indicator of overall progress. There are reasons to keep going.
Okay, so after really digging into Jean LaMantia's guide, it feels like the core message, the principles for success, they kind of boil down to a few key takeaways.
Yeah, the book actually summarizes it nicely near the end with 9 core principles. Things like plan your approach, choose a window or method that actually fits your life, decide intentionally what you'll eat during your feeding window, ease into it, Be flexible, stay super hydrated, learn strategies to manage hunger and cravings. Focus on nourishing your body with whole, real foods. And maybe most importantly, focus on your overall health and well-being, not just the number on the scale.
That's a fantastic summary. Plan, choose, decide what to eat, ease in, be flexible, hydrate, manage hunger, nourish, focus on health.
You got it.
So we've unpacked the book's take on the science, the metabolic why. We explored the really diverse hows, all those different methods.
Yeah.
We stressed the importance of what you eat and drink during the when. And we got practical tips for making it a lifestyle troubleshooting challenges. The whole goal here was really to equip you, the listener, with these specific actionable insights directly from this one comprehensive source.
Exactly, because intermittent fasting, at least as it's presented in this guide, it doesn't have to be another complicated, rigid diet you suffer through.
Yeah.
It's presented more as a flexible framework, a set of tools.
Yeah, tools you can adapt.
Right. Adapt to your own body, your schedule, your preferences, your life. It's about finding a rhythm that works for you. Maybe tapping into some of these fundamental metabolic processes that have always been there and using timing as one more lever to pull for supporting your overall well-being.
And maybe that final thought is viewing that feeding window differently. Not just as time to eat whatever, but as a focused opportunity to intentionally nourish your body with the best fuel possible, because you've given it that period of rest.
That's a great way to put it. And always, always keeping in mind the importance of talking with your own healthcare professionals, especially if you have any health conditions, to make sure any approach you consider is truly safe and appropriate for you.